He was convicted of murdering his wife, even though the police had never found a body. Years later, he secretly told his son where her remains were hidden. The son, of course, went straight to the police, and what officers discovered proved that the detectives had been right the entire time. Debbie Griggs was a 34-year-old nurse, a mother of 3 young boys, and she was expecting her 4th child. She lived with her husband, Andrew, and their children in Deal, Kent. Friends and family described Debbie as a devoted mother who always put her children first. But behind closed doors, her marriage was becoming increasingly unhappy. In diary entries written before her disappearance, Debbie painted a troubling picture of life with Andrew. She would write things like, "If things do not go his way, he gets very nasty." In another entry, she claimed, "Everything we have together is in fact his." She also wrote that Andrew would tell her that she was sick and mad in the head. On the 5th of May in 1999, Debbie disappeared. The following day, Andrew contacted Kent police. He told the call handler that Debbie had been suffering from postnatal depression and that she had left the family home after having an argument. According to Andrew, she had taken £250 and driven away in her white Peugeot. When he was asked about details of the vehicle, he couldn't remember the registration number. The police visited the family home that night, and Andrew was unable to provide a recent photograph of his missing wife. He also struggled to explain why he'd actually waited a full day before reporting her missing. His explanation was that Debbie had left before, after an argument, and she'd always returned. But that this time she just didn't, and it was really out of the ordinary. As detectives began investigating, they uncovered details that made them increasingly suspicious about Andrew. Just one day before Debbie had vanished, Andrew removed her from the joint business account. They ran Griggs Freezer Centre in Deal, and it was heavily suggested that Andrew believed that Debbie was never coming back, which is why he took her off the business. Detectives also uncovered another major issue in the marriage. Debbie had learnt that Andrew was involved in a relationship with a vulnerable 15-year-old girl, and she was no longer willing to keep that a secret. Police believed that Andrew feared that he was going to lose his relationship and everything that he had in the business if Debbie came out saying what was going on with this relationship. And more concerning details started to come out, because a week after Debbie disappeared, her white Peugeot was discovered abandoned just a mile away from the family home. The boot liner had been removed as well, which is obviously heavily suspicious. Investigators found blood inside the vehicle, and it was confirmed to be Debbie's, but there was no sign of Debbie herself. Meanwhile, all of her bank accounts remained untouched. She made no contact with friends or family. She accessed no services. It was as if she had simply vanished off the face of the planet. But then came another very strange moment. On the 17th of May, a receptionist at a dental practice asked Andrew for his wife's date of birth. Instead of replying, "Oh, her date of birth is blah blah blah," he replied, "Her date of birth was." And for investigators, that was another small but hugely significant red flag. Just weeks after Debbie had disappeared, Andrew was preparing the family home to leave. On the 8th of June, he contacted an estate agent, and by the 16th of June, a little more than a month after she had vanished, he was packing up and moving away, which you wouldn't do if your loved one was just missing. Despite mounting suspicions, obviously, the detectives were facing a huge problem because they didn't have a body, and without a body, proving murder would be extremely difficult. Years went by and Debbie remained missing with absolutely no sign of her, but cold case detectives continued reviewing all of the evidence. Eventually, investigators became convinced that Debbie had been murdered. In 2019, Andrew Griggs was convicted of her murder despite the fact that they'd never found her body, which is one of the most rare convictions in British criminal history, imprisoning someone for murder when a body has never been found. He was sentenced to life in prison, and most people assumed that would be the end of the story, but it wasn't. While serving his sentence, Andrew made a catastrophic mistake. During a prison visit, he revealed a big secret to his son. He told him where Debbie's body was hidden. According to prosecutors, Andrew instructed Jake to go and dig up the remains, remove a strand of Debbie's hair, and take it to France. The plan was to post the hair back to the United Kingdom with a letter supposedly written by Debbie, creating the false impression that she was still alive. But instead, Jake, the son, did something that his father never expected, and he went straight to the police and he told them all about this elaborate plan because it was ridiculous. Acting on this information, officers went and carried out a search, and what they found was exactly what detectives had suspected for years. Buried beneath the concrete base of a former shed was a barrel-shaped container. Inside was the remains of Debbie Griggs. She'd been wrapped in a blue tarpaulin, and inside were clothes, bedding, and the boot liner that was missing from Debbie's Peugeot. Obviously, Andrew was questioned about this, and he claimed that around 2 years after Debbie had disappeared, he found a body inside a container in somebody else's garden. According to Andrew, he panicked. He covered the container in fiberglass and arranged for it to be buried. He claimed that he suspected it might be beneath his shed, but he wasn't sure. Obviously, this theory was rejected, and Andrew was charged with perverting the course of justice. He later pled guilty, and the court imposed an additional 3-year prison sentence. That sentence was ordered to run consecutively to his life sentence, moving his earliest possible release date to 2041. More than 20 years after Debbie vanished, her family finally got answers for what happened, but it came at a huge cost, because not only did Debbie's children lose their mum, they found out that it was at the hands of their own dad.